Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again, as always, by Chief Development Officer Manny Lagos. Manny, we both have finally woken up from our slumbers, our quick slumbers, after a very late night soccer game last night between Minnesota United and LAFC. We'll get to that one in a bit, but how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. Obviously, you're never where you want to be after a result, but I mean, you're a little tired for sure. There's no doubt. I mean, my morning meeting started very early this morning too. So, but at the same time, I mean, it's really nice to get on the air with you, talk about some games, two games, then also talk about the league, and then talk about quick turnaround. So all of those things that kind of are on the docket today, and so I'm looking forward to the show with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. We've got so much to discuss, so much to kind of review and preview today. So let's jump right into it. Plenty of notable results from the weekend and today, or last night, excuse me, across Major League Soccer. The high scoring one between Cincinnati and Toronto, the game that just never
Yeah.
gave up. It was just wild and crazy from minute 1 to all the way to minute 90. And that one was an excellent one to watch, Manny, at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Cincinnati up until last night was on a big roll, so it probably meant more if they got the result last night against Nashville as well. But at the same time, it was a fascinating game. We've got Cincinnati, who has really kind of been, elite in the East for a couple of years now, going against Toronto, that's trying to, with a new coach, kind of create a new identity and belief. And it felt like Toronto fought and battled, but it also kind of showed Cincinnati's quality in the end. I mean, they just really handled the adversity of that away game so well. So many offensive weapons and really some subs that made a difference and really got a great result on the road in the end of the day. And one of those games where you just love an MLS because the parity is there and the fight is there, and it could have gone either way.
And that leads right into Cincinnati's next game, which was last night in Nashville. And they get beat 2-0 by a Nashville side that is on an interim manager, obviously going through some turmoil earlier this season, but an excellent result from Nashville. I haven't been able to see many of the highlights, but what a result from Nashville, and just shows the fight and the tenacity of that squad to take it to a Cincinnati squad that is very, very good once again this season.
Yeah, Jonathan, can you correct me if I'm wrong? I thought that game was in Cincinnati last night, not Nashville.
It might have been. Again, my
That
brain's all
makes it even more
a little
impressive.
scrim. Yeah, it was in Cincinnati. Excuse me.
Yeah, it was
Sorry.
in Cincinnati. So and obviously, there's a coaching change in Nashville. Similar to us in that you have a coach for a long time, part of your growth in the MLS, pre-MLS, and was really the identity of that team. So, they call it that coach's bounce. They call it just now, kind of starting over again, and they definitely got probably like one of their bigger wins in a long time on the road against one of the quality teams in the league. So really credit to Nashville to go into Cincinnati last night and get a shutout and get the win.
Couple of big results for Real Salt Lake. They're both draws, but the way they both played out, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm looking it up, yep, two very late draws saved by Real Salt Lake at the weekend and yesterday. Real Salt Lake getting a 8th-minute stoppage, second half stoppage time goal from Palacio to rescue a 3-3 draw from Dallas, and then a second-minute, I believe, stoppage time goal last night in Seattle to rescue a point from them from that game. A 1-1 draw between those two sides last night. Real Salt Lake just doesn't go away. They are, and we say it every week, they're continuing to show how good they are. But I think the more concerning development for teams across the league is just the fact that you can't feel safe going into any part of that game in the dying moments of that game, and you can't feel safe with whatever lead you have, because it seems like Real Salt Lake will just pull something out of the bag no matter what the circumstances.
What a start to their season. What
Yeah.
a um, just performances, wins, and ties, and how they're doing it. They're tying games they should lose. They're winning games they should tie, and they're winning games they should win. So they are at the top of the West for a reason. This game, to me, being down 3-0 away and coming back and getting a 3-3 result is just shows that this team has had an outstanding couple months. They are firing in all cylinders. When things even go bad, they're like not going to put their head down and they're going to fight through it. And so, both these ties, this one and in Seattle last night, are outstanding points. It was only 2 out of 6 points, but the way they went about it against teams that, were kind of desperate in their own way to get points to climb the West, outstanding. Again, I think we've kind of here and there talked about RSL, but this Andres Gomez kid is just on fire. I mean, I think he's going to get called into for the Copa America. I'm not sure officially, but wow, he is a Colombian forward right now. Is just added another dimension to Rango, who's scoring for fun, and a structured defense that's playing really well. So you can't say enough about being down 3-0 on the road and come back and tying 3-3. That is just one heck of a result.
Yeah, they've got all the attacking talent in the world, which you didn't normally associate with Real Salt Lake, but now that they do, they add that to an already impressive defense under Pablo Mastroeni, and then that's just a dangerous combination to have going into a season, and they've absolutely gotten flying out of the gates here. 8-2-6 on the season already, 5-1-1 at home. You do not want to try and find a victory in Utah this season, and on the road, they're just as dangerous. 3-1-5. They have been so good this season. The other notable result from the last week since we talked: Atlanta 3, Miami 1, and it was a 100% fresh Miami side that didn't send most of its players to Vancouver at the weekend. Still get the win in Vancouver. Then they come home, and I believe it was in Miami, if I'm remembering correctly. But either way, 3-1 Atlanta over Miami. That's an impressive result for an Atlanta side that has really, really struggled this season.
It's another example why I love this league. The parity is just unbelievable, and the roster in Atlanta is very good, and they're dangerous. Obviously, we had, I thought, one of our better results of the year when we went there and really took over and won away against them. I thought we did it pretty handily, personally, in terms of taking it on time when they were down, and you would really think this was going to be a kind of league leading team, just pounding and taking control of an Atlanta team that is lacking confidence. And it flipped. It was the other way around.
Yeah.
Atlanta was wide open attacking, creating chances, dealing with Messi for most parts of the game up until he scored really, really well. And so, it's one of those things where it is must watch Messi and must watch Miami now, because Messi's that good, and Miami, for the most part, seems to never be out of a game, a little bit like RSL. But last night, no. Last night, Atlanta played a complete game, and really, even when it went 2-1, they didn't bunker in. They started attacking again and saying, "Hey, we want to get up 2 goals," and just a great result for them away from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And you like to see that from those teams that don't feel like they're having that great of a season, but then they get this result and maybe it could spur them on to bigger things down the road. So let's jump right into this Colorado game from the weekend, because that was another one of the more bigger results from the weekend because of the score line. 3-3 Minnesota, Colorado. Minnesota had a 3-1 lead at halftime, give up 2 goals in the second half, and leave Colorado with 1 point. There's plenty to discuss here, but let's just start off. Your general thoughts from that match. I thought it was a very wild match. I thought it was probably one of the weaker performances from the season, but again, you still get a draw out of the match, and you still get a point out of the match and leave on your first game of a 2-game road trip with a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're just based on possession, it was certainly one of the weaker performances. My first thought is it's honestly probably one of the weirdest games in club history.
Yes.
Just watching it, that's all I could think. It was so weird because, there's elements of that we were outstanding. We obviously didn't have the ball a lot, but when we got it in the first half, we just took it to them. I mean, we had some really nice moments where we won first ball, second balls, and just were so direct. And so that just led to a unique kind of way when you're away and trying to navigate that. It was very successful not to have the ball in that game. Obviously, the tide turned as the adversity of the game kind of went on. But let's just definitely talk about this first half, because the reality was the first half maybe led to us not getting out of trying to get more possession because we were so successful. And,
Right.
I think specifically, Jonathan, the first goal, Robin's touches, and just Sang's explosion and composure was just outstanding. I think it just really put Colorado back on their feet a little bit. And really kind of set up, like I said, one of the weirdest games, I think, in club history from a just pure watching how effective you can be without possession, but then leads to bigger challenge later in the game when you don't have the ball and you get a team confident in trying to catch up and get points on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting out, kind of just triggering back those memories from that game is Colorado came out and had a couple of really dangerous chances very early on, and you kind of sat back and you're like, whoa, this is setting up already for a wild game. And these two teams in Colorado tend to have very different games and very unexpected, as you said, wild games between these two sides. And it started off that way. And then, as you said, Songbin Jung scoring in the 8th minute. And what a pass from Robin Lod, but what an even better run from Songbin Jung to take that diagonal run, cut off the defender, and give himself some space to clear the ball around Zach Steffen for the opening goal. You love to see that because it's just building off that confidence he got from the goal he scored against Portland just a couple days earlier.
Yeah, it was really, really fun to see that kind of explosion. And really, when you watch the play, um, there's a belief that from saying that Robin is going to keep the ball in a tough spot with three guys around him.
Mhm.
And he really starts to make that run even before his first outstanding touch to break away from two guys. And so now he is one of the few players in MLS that has that kind of speed, at full speed, to say, you know what, Robin could put this ball in for me. And his believing in Robin's touches, believing in getting to the space where the ball is going to be, and really the connection between the two is outstanding, and it certainly led to that goal. I think there was a similarity in terms of saying, hey, this is a great run. I like it. And obviously the third goal has similarity for me, in terms of,
Yep.
hey, we might win the ball here. I'm going to start going. Tani has similar composure, maybe not as needed the kind of clever touches Robin did, but he certainly needed the same kind of way to pass and clever run that Sang had. So it was a really nice way to kind of absorb the pressure and really let Colorado know this is going to be a tough day for them. Again, I know we're going to go into sometimes it felt like a really tough day for us. But at the same time, we actually created some great chances in both halves. That I think it was also a tough day for Colorado to deal with our kind of just explosiveness when we won the ball.
For sure. And that was one of the things that we talked about on the show last week is that with how Colorado had played recently and kind of giving up leads and not really seeing games out, that when the Loons let in the third goal, it felt like there was still a chance. And there was still a couple of chances. Teemu Pukki had one that went off the crossbar. And there was a couple other chances where Teemu Pukki had rounded Zach Steffen in very tough angle, didn't get it in, goes off the bar, but for the most part, it felt like Minnesota still, despite not having a whole lot of possession, despite some shaky defensive performances, unfortunately, it didn't feel like Minnesota were completely fully out of it. And that kind of led to the wild game. But you mentioned Songbin Jong's second goal, another excellent pass, this time in from Tani Oluwaseyi, who kind of just got the ball back and immediately saw that Songbin Jung was on his horse getting ready or just running at that back line. And that was kind of the theme for that game for the attackers, is that as soon as Minnesota won the ball back, it was immediately just get the ball upfield and see what you can do with those two speedsters running up top. Tani Oluwaseyi scoring in the 24th minute off a rebound, continuing to be in the right place at the right time, just knowing where to be as a striker. And that's something you want to see from a young kid, to have that feel for the game, to be in the right spot at the right time and know where those balls are going to just pop up and just be there to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, again, the timing of the first and third goal were so fun to watch aesthetically. It's again, it's one of my favorite things about soccer when you get these tempos going and everything is just at such a high pace and speed, and the skill is just insane, and the composure then to collect yourself and finish, which for saying he's young, he's still building into that. And those two
Yeah.
goals, the power, the pace, again, the pass by Tani and Lod were similar. Had to be perfect. The run had to be perfect. The touch had to be perfect, which allowed the kind of the slowness of the finish was kind of the end product of all that speed and tempo. Um, and again, that's really where the uniqueness of this game and weirdness for me was that you play a half where you get a 3-1 lead, and it's working. And so maybe if they were tied or only up one goal tactically or things we might, Eric might think about shifting things up, but it's really hard to say, okay, 3-1 on the road. We're going to change everything. And
Yeah.
again, I don't know. that's sometimes how I love the sport. You can't always predict how it's going to be played out. And it's a game of inches because at 3-1, we kept the same kind of tactical way of letting them have the ball and maybe overwhelming us a little bit. And I still look at the second half and I think about besides the PK, we probably had the two best chances of the second half. If Sangbin scores that one to go to 4-1, very similar goals that we've had in the first half, I think the game's over. I don't think they come
Mhm.
back with 3-goal deficit. And then certainly when it went to 3-3 and Pookie had a great read and steal of a ball and almost, kind of at that point, it probably would consider a smash and grab 3 points. But we navigated the second half. I don't want to say that was easy or that we look great or we're like, oh, we're going to play like this all year. If we keep playing like this all year, we won't be happy with where we are. But I certainly do look at a point on the road in Colorado, being up 3-1 and really navigating in a weird way. We always talk about those 2-goal leads are sometimes the toughest leads in sports.
Mhm.
That hit us. And then it was. And we still walked out of there with a point. Um, I think there's some pride there. Again, I don't think that it should be me saying, "Oh, it was great." There's no doubt. I think Eric Ramsey had some honest quotes about, "Hey, we got to have better soccer. There's got to be a little bit more balance to when we get leads, how we control the game, how we deal with the team trying to get back into the game." But at the same time, tactically, there were some really fun, explosive moments, and a little bit of us being unlucky for not being up 4-1 and or getting the 4-3 win, frankly, at the end of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Eric Ramsey's quotes. One of his key quotes. He said, "We really struggled with the ball today. We didn't show any signs, I would say, of coming near to the team that we've been on. We've been our best with the ball. That leads us to playing forward very quickly. It means that we're not well connected to play up second balls up when they drop. We gave an awful lot of space behind the back line once we played forward. So a combination of playing forward too quickly, not being prepared enough for the duels, leaving too big a space behind the back line. I would say that would be the three biggest factors, but it starts with not having our fair share of the ball, I suppose." Is what he said in the post-match press conference. And that was the big talking point among many Loons fans is the vast disparity between the possession between the two teams. 70% for Colorado, 30% for Minnesota. At halftime, I remember looking at that and seeing the scoreline. I'm like, wow, that definitely certainly tells a story of how this game is played out with Minnesota using the counterattack to, I guess, just to very to be very effective on the counterattack, excuse me, and just being very good on that. And then that built into the second half, as you said, where it felt like not a whole lot of changes were made because of the way the game had played out. And Colorado really keyed in on that in the second half and just continued piling on the pressure that led to eventually a penalty kick. Dane St. Clair stopping it, a huge penalty kick save by Dane St. Clair in a big moment. What a save by him in that moment.
Yeah, fun to see Dane step up like that. Obviously, they still got a third one a couple minutes later, but it was just Dane once again is showing his ability to stop a large amount percentage of PKs in this league is so impressive. He's had been off to such a great start this year. He's come up with some big saves, and that one at that point, that's where you kind of hope we kind of dig down now and battle a little more in terms of what Eric's talking about in terms of keeping that possession. It's one of those things I love about the sport. We are in Colorado, high altitude, and it's not one thing or the other, but the chance to go for a third goal through that quick counterattack, it was so enticing that I think sometimes you get caught forgetting about the little battles of possession and defensive third or the middle third or making good decisions saying, you know what, let's just sit on the ball a little bit. Let's get them behind the ball. Let's make sure they get a little bit of a deep block, give our guys some rest. And again, that balance is so hard when you're having success just counterattacking. And like I said, I think we learned a lot in the game. I think the players and the team learned a lot while we didn't give up 3 points on the road. So like I said, it was a weird game. It was a tough game. It was a challenging game. It was a real amounts of adversity that could have easily, been 3 points lost and 0 points for us. And we still that they scored their third goal. We still really had to navigate at least getting a point in almost three, while still knowing we were not as sharp as we wanted to be in terms of possession, in terms of navigating a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Dane St. Clair's penalty save number. Just looked it up on FBref, and 4 penalty kick saves out of 10 taken or 10 attempts against him in league play. That's an incredible number. I know it's not a big sample size, but saving 4 obviously, or there was another one missed and allowing 5. That's a 40% possession or 40% stop rate. That's incredible for a young keeper to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love it. He stays big. He really wants to make the save. He's tends to not guess. He tends to really want to make the shooter say, "Hey, I'm a gamer. You're gonna have to beat me." And I
Mhm.
just his mentality in him, his ability to just really react, but still actually be acting towards the goalie to say, "You got to beat me. I'm not going to just make this easy." Has been just over the years outstanding. It was just a big time save.
Absolutely. Other notes from this match, bit of a formation switch for Minnesota. 5-2-1-2. Robin Lod playing behind Tanny and Sung Bin Jung in as kind of like a number 10 behind those two guys. I thought that was an interesting switch to change up that midfield a little bit. It seemed to allow a little bit more possession for Colorado, but it did allow Robin Lod to be in a dangerous area, and we saw that last night against LAFC. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but kind of putting him in a position to just get on the ball a little bit more and find that ball and find the attackers. I thought that was an interesting switch. It didn't really play off in getting you all 3 points, but it did provide a couple of chances and provided you one goal at least. And so I thought that was an interesting switch that I really liked out of Eric Ramsey and out of the team on
Yeah,
Saturday.
I like it, Jonathan. I still think it was a little bit more of a 3-4-3. I thought Robin was really wide right, which historically that's when we signed him. He played a lot in that wide right forward position.
Mhm.
Um, but he could come in because he's got that left foot, so it's kind of like an inverted number 10 for us. And it was one of those days where I think it really worked early. Like I said, we overwhelmed them. Robin got the ball in good spot, broke lines, Sang's finishes. So again, that's where this game becomes weird for me because the system allowed us to kind of defend and counterattack really, really well. With Sang, Ben, Tani, and Robin all up top. Um, but it also got to a point where we were down a man in the middle with Jordan Harvey and Trap, and they started moving the ball, and our shape just couldn't quite get to the point where we started getting more possession, or when we got it, we just weren't as good as sharp in the day. So for me, the nuances of the system are always fun to talk about because it is unique. But
Yeah.
to me, it was kind of the first game in this year where maybe we used Robin as a wide right as opposed to just like in the middle and then floating right. So there's nuances there. Everybody can look at it a little bit differently. The heat map, how you do it, and I think that's where outside of the assists, Robin um, maybe wasn't as influential both games this week as we'd like him. But at the same time, he still is influenced because he had assists and he had moments in both games that almost created great goals for us.
As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is responsible for keeping our Loons ready for game day with industry-leading sports medicine and orthopedic care. But our award-winning care does not stop there. Because true well-being requires good physical and mental health, the mental health team at Allina is also there for you with a variety of programs and services featuring more than 300 mental health professionals. Allina Mental Health Services helps ensure you stay at the top of your game. Talk to your healthcare provider or call the Mental Health and Addiction Connection line, 866-603-0016, for any mental health service, question, or concern 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me kind of smoothly into the LAFC game, is where you don't feel like you're as sharp on the night in Colorado, but you leave with the point. Then you play a couple days later in Los Angeles. And I feel like, to me, this was a much better performance from the team. The result doesn't show it, but I felt like they were a little bit more confident. The defense was a little bit more stable. They really, for the most part in that first half, felt like they limited LAFC's chances. Maybe I'm just misremembering that game from last night, but it felt like Minnesota played a much more stable game, a much more clean game, but they don't get the result. But there's still a lot more that you can build off of that LAFC performance than you could probably the game a couple days earlier where you get a point out of it.
Yeah, moving on to LAFC. We know it's one of the toughest places to play in the league. It really is, both from the crowd and just the fact that they create a great tempo, a press, repress, right in that defensive third of us. They do an outstanding job of really putting pressure on you. And I'm with you. I mean, listen, it's a game of inches in this sport, and I thought our first 22 to 25 minutes were outstanding.
Mhm.
I thought defensively they didn't have a sniff really. I thought we were really organized. I thought when we got forward, we were efficient. Chances were going to be created. Pookie's shot was blocked for a corner. For the life of me, still don't think Joseph's ball's out of bounds. I'm a big believer that if that goes in, it's a totally different game because we were
Mhm.
playing so well defensively at that point. And those key calls and big moments are really tough away because you're not going to have as many chances probably as you are at home. And now you're navigating, the game a little bit differently. And then they come down and get a PK, and now it's really up to us to kind of take it to them in a place that's tough. It's tough to do that. So I think you're on it. I thought our first 20, 25 minutes defensively outstanding. That led to some really good offensive moments. And this is just me talking, but I do not like linesmen calling those balls out of bounds. I'm like, there's no way to know for sure. I hate having to look through two posts and the guy on the very far side of the field. I'm proposing on this podcast right now that we eliminate it. Like you can curl the ball in as much as you want, and there's no out of bounds on corner kicks because I just think it's unless they have the technology where they know, just eliminate it. Like because I think it leads to me this morning being crabby about such a key play in the game going against us, and it really hurt us because we really handled them, and then we were the ones at that point creating chances, and once that missed. They seemed to get their feet a little bit. Bouanga really started to kind of become dangerous and drew the PK. So um, that changed the game. Those two moments were big. And it would have been nice to get the halftime 0-0. We didn't, and then we had to navigate after that. And credit to LAFC, they did a good job. I want to remind that we did a good job against them here.
Yep.
2-0 for both, games, and both teams left, being like, hey, we got to get better. Played against a good team, and they did well in the night.
If you look back at that LAFC game earlier on in the season, it was a 2-0 win for Minnesota. Both games kind of played out similar to each other in that Minnesota, when they were at home, got the first half goal early on and kind of rode that into throughout the second half and get a goal late in the 88th plus minute. And then LAFC do the same exact thing against Minnesota. Different ways they played out, but it felt very similar they felt like very similar games a couple months apart. And for Minnesota, we talked about it, Dan and I did on the broadcast back in March at that game, is that you felt like you're getting LAFC at the exact right time. And boy, did you ever, because they've gone on a heater since then. And Denny Bouanga has started scoring goals and can't stop now. And Minnesota caught him at the right time and then just got caught at the exact wrong time for one of the hottest teams in the league. And Minnesota played an excellent game. It just felt like you were going up against a really tough opponent last night. And going back to Robin Lod, I want to talk about him a little bit because we ended the Colorado conversation with him and how he played. It felt like last night he was playing a little bit higher, and at kind of to begin the game anyways, he was playing a little bit higher, and he really wasn't on the ball much throughout the first half. Second half, they move him back into the midfield, and all of a sudden it felt like Minnesota had started gaining possession, started playing a little bit better in the midfield and creating chances in that second half. Obviously, some substitutions from LAFC changed that a little bit, but there was probably about a 10-minute stretch there where it felt like with Robin Lod in the midfield, dropping back deeper to get on the ball, things started happening for Minnesota in the attack that just hadn't happened for the previous, 50, 60 minutes or so.
Yeah, again, Robin's such a quality player that when you get him on the ball in good spots, or you get him to kind of use his soft feet with his kind of physical stature, he's going to start breaking lines. He's going to start helping us get a little bit of tempo and breathe a little bit to get numbers forward. And again, LAFC did a great job of really not allowing us to win some balls in the middle of the field, and they won a lot of second balls. And so, that combination of Pookie and Sang up top, had moments, like I said, in the first 25 to 30 minutes, we kind of died out into the half. And then, it was really going to be interesting to see how we're going to tactically try to get going in the second half. So for me, again, I think Robin is an important player. When he gets on the ball, when he's involved, we're having a good night. And, he couldn't quite find the ball as much in both halves to really allow us to be effective the way we wanted to, particularly when you're down and you're chasing the game. So there's no doubt, we were in it for long periods, but we weren't creating a lot of chances to really, say that we were going to, justly get a tie or even get the result. So a credit to LAFC and how they played. And again, like you said, it wasn't a result where you're looking at us like they took over the whole game. They didn't.
Yeah.
But it's also a good reminder that you just mentioned LAFC. When they played us, they looked at some of how they were doing things and they really recalibrated. And since they played us, they barely have gotten scored on. And now I think they're 5 games in a row that they haven't given up a goal. So they've really hammered home how they want to be organized defensively and really limit chances and limit goals conceded. And that's allowed their offense to open up. So, I'm excited because, like us, we saw last night, there's things that we're still growing into what we're going to be good at. And we were ending a great run of games where we hadn't lost. And last night, you know what? Sometimes that happens and you're going to learn from them. So this is a big game for us to learn from that and move on from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. I kind of lost my train of thought there. Again, still trying to wake up this morning and figure everything out. Minnesota unfortunately lose last night to a very good LAFC team, dropped down to 4th place in the Western Conference. After that action, we'll talk about Sporting KC.
And I think we have games in hand though, right? We have games in hand. What's our points per game?
Yep, our points per game 1.79 puts us, I believe, 3rd place behind Real Salt Lake on 1.88, LAFC on 1.8, and then us 1.79. LA Galaxy, who are in 2nd place now, 1.75. Minnesota has 1 game in hand on LAFC, 2 games in hand on Real Salt Lake. Teemu Pukki up top, kind of alone, also had Song Bin Jong with him as well. What's gone, I don't want to say wrong for Teemu Pukki because he's still creating dangerous chances, just the ball's not finding the back of the net. And there was a chance early on that felt like, I think you mentioned on the corner kick that should have gone in. There was another one that it felt like it was a really nice through ball in, or I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but he had a tap in that could have happened, but it just didn't come off his foot right. And you could see it on his face. He just like, man, when is this ball just going to go into the back of the net? Can't remember exactly when it happened, but there was a ball that came in low into him and it felt like if he had just tapped it in or got his foot on it, it would have gone in the back of the net.
Yeah, that was a 1-0 corner kick.
I think so, yeah.
Just came across the face of him and he tried to turn and shift his body and score it. So again, it's really, when you're still building into your group and when you're playing and you're not playing. And I really, one of my favorite runs was his run in the channel early in the first half, got the cutback, looked like a shot that was going on goal, could be a goal. Maybe Hugo saves it, but the defender then heads it out. I mean, these are key moments where you're going to get your confidence back. And then throughout that first half, he really is continuing to try to find the balance of making those kind of runs through and behind, but also figuring out how to be impactful with when we need possession and we need to get out. And, a couple times I think it would have been important to get him and find the ball at his feet just to relieve Asani and Will and Robin at times that pressure that they're putting in the middle of the field. We need that outlet into his feet, then get it wide, then get our numbers forward, then breathe a little bit, or do a counterattack and try to score. So again, there's no easy answers when you're a goal scorer and you're expected to score, except for those other little things are just as important, ironically, because the team needs you to keep the ball in tough spots. It needs you to kind of battle a little bit so we can win second balls, and now it gets waves of attacks on them. So ultimately, particularly when you're a goal scorer, that's tough because you forget about those other little things that matter and mean a lot. And I'm sure Eric is going to try to remind both the individuals and the group collectively, it's not just scoring goals that does it. It's all these little things that will lead to us getting chances to score, us getting chances not to give up 3 or 2 goals in a game. So ultimately, like I said, roll up his sleeves, keep going. He's got a great mentality. I think he's like a lot of us, we're still building what our identity is going to be offensively.
Yeah.
And there's goals in there, and there's goals in his play. So it's one of those situations where hopefully we get excited about a game that we've probably learned a lot about ourselves and that we have a lot of room for improvement against a very good team in the West that will, kind of expose where you are in terms of where you're in the season. And again, I flip it and say, I think we did the same to LAFC here, which is a really big positive. So, we split the series and we split the goal difference in the series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I leave that game disappointed that you didn't get a point or 3 points out of it, because you see what Real Salt Lake has done the past couple of days, and only getting 2 points out of their 2 games. Feel like you could have got a little bit closer or passed them in the standings, but with how that performance played out, you feel really confident in what they're going to be able to do on Saturday against Sporting Kansas City. How much do you think the tiredness played into it? Because obviously you come away from 3 days, or you start playing 3 days later after playing at altitude, which is certainly a different beast in and of itself, playing that high up in Colorado, and then you go and play against an LAFC side that is just on fire right now. How much do you think the tiredness played through? Because it seemed like near the end of that match, there was some tired legs kind of working against Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, mentally, the mental challenge, I think, of the first 2 games of these 3 games a week is really tough in terms of just how the games went. It was a battle in Colorado, in altitude, and just really, that's where you're sometimes weighs on you both physically and mentally when you don't have the ball for that long of a period, and you have to keep your shape, you have to keep your focus and concentration and shifting and closing, and really, you probably don't have the same kind of tempo that you would like to breathe a little bit and recover. So, and then you go into one of the toughest places in the league to play against a team that is red hot, that is going to create a great tempo. It's not easy. I would say one extra day was important, though. So unlike this weekend, where there is now a massive physical recovery happening, which started last night with hopefully a good night's sleep for the guys, and not flying home right after the game, but getting a good night's sleep, and now flying home today and getting hopefully a lot more rest and regeneration throughout today. And then just a nice light preparation session tomorrow. And so tomorrow, or Saturday's game, is a quick turnaround mentally to be excited at home and be excited in front of your fans and your kind of familiarity of what you're going to do. But you are at the tail end of a 3-game week where we are going to be physically tired. And, obviously Eric made some changes from Saturday to Wednesday. It's going to be fascinating for him to kind of regroup and think about what kind of group he wants to put out. Is it the same group? Is it fresh legs? And all of that stuff is now being kind of thought through from a management standpoint about how he wants to think about not only tactically, but physically and mentally, the game on Saturday is going to go. And I would also add, KC played last night in Kansas City, though, and that's an hour flight. So it's a little bit different, and they'll travel tomorrow for an hour flight. So both teams have a quick turnaround. Both teams are coming off of losses. So it's going to be a great challenge Saturday, playing against, I would say, a desperate team that is probably coming here to look for 3 points.
I have a natural transition, but I can't move on to the Sporting Kansas City game without mentioning Mateusz Bagush's goal. I mean, that is one of the goals of the season. Unfortunately, it came against the Loons, but hitting that clean of a strike, having it curl away from Dane St. Clair into the top of the net, that was just an absolute wonder strike that as it's flying through the air, you're like, oh man, this is going to be on highlight reels all season long.
Yeah, it was. I guess my only, you have this emotional roller coaster of the game, and the second goal goes in so late, and you're kind of like, you kind of in your moment of understanding now that the mountain to climb is really big for us to get back in this game and get a point or even 3 points. And then you recalibrate, and as a soccer fan, my wife turned to me actually, and she said, "Do you miss hitting balls like that?" Which was nice, because that's where you are in that moment, is just like, you to be able to crush balls and have it, dip and just kind of knuckle in a way that you're like, how can somebody do that? And again, that comes from technique. It comes from the ability to just like swing through your hip and just really hit it in that sweet spot. And that is a pure goal and a pure strike, and obviously nothing Dane could do about it. But just, I think somebody joked with me, I think we could have had 2 goalies in there, we wouldn't have stopped that one. And that's a credit to them. Great goal, and a great goal to watch as a soccer fan, with a bitter taste that it's against us.
Yeah. Is that one of those things where you hit that and you immediately know that you got that clean, or do you kind of wait for the end result to play out before you're confident in what's about to happen?
Oh, he knew it right away.
Yeah.
Like right away. I mean, if you actually go back and watch, he right away, he's landing on his kicking foot. It just, it even came at Dane just a tad. So then Dane sees it a little bit late, in terms of how to really where to dive and how fast to dive. Just again, it's one of those moments where it is just a great strike. It's a part of the sport is that you can crush a ball sometimes, and you got to see that last night.
Yeah, that was an incredible strike. Unfortunately, coming against Minnesota. All right, back to the transition into Sporting Kansas City. How much does it help that short turnaround, not a whole lot of days in between these games? How much does it help that you've already played Sporting Kansas City once, and it was only like just a little bit over a month ago? So there's not a whole lot of new learning you have to do because it's a Sporting Kansas City side that has been in a downturn of form, but you played them what 28, 30 days ago. So you should know what this team is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would say certainly for the backroom staff, there's a lot of work that goes in preparation tactically for these games, and there's a lot of work that you got to really put together to prepare. And so they probably only have, instead of 2 or 3 months of their work, they only have 3 weeks. Even within 3 weeks, teams change tactically, they change lineups, they change personnel, and particularly a team unlike LAFC, which has been on a roll and has kept pretty much the same lineup. Kansas City has tried a lot of different twists to get out of their 9-game winless streak. So there is some of that, but at the same time, it gets a little bit tricky because they're changing lineups so much to try to see if they can get something going and get some points. So there'll be some familiarity, to the game on Saturday for sure. I think it's going to be a tense, tough battle when you got such a desperate team coming in. That's going to be ready to fight and claw, and it's not going to be met with 2 teams that are fresh. You got 2 tired teams physically and mentally that have to forget that and come out and really put their stamp on the game.
Yeah, absolutely. 2-1 result for Minnesota the last time these 2 teams played at Allianz Field. Michael Boxall scoring in the 2nd minute, Tony Oluwaseyi in the 25th, and then Alan Polito scoring in the 37th minute. All 3 goals coming in the first half of that one. But Sporting Kansas City, as you mentioned, 9 matches without a win, losing 7 of those 9, and currently on a 6-match losing streak. Not a good form, and their loss last night against Vancouver in in Kansas City dropped them all the way to the bottom of the Western Conference. That is not a place that Peter Vermees's sides have spent a whole lot of time. So this is very unfamiliar ground for Sporting Kansas City this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were there like this last year around this time of the year too, although it felt a little different because I think they had a lot more injuries.
Yeah.
I think right now there's a lot more attention about, what are the issues and why are they not getting the results that they expect to get. So it certainly is like Colorado, a team that we kind of look out in the West as our closest rival. Each of those fights, one's an hour and 10 minutes, the other one is a little bit under 2 hours, hour 50, I think. So it's definitely the proximity and the Midwest values and kind of even the market size. This is a team we've battled over the years, and we've struggled at Kansas City, but we've been pretty darn good at home. So like I said, I think this is a big moment for us to kind of get back on track from a tough road trip where we only got 1 point out of 6, but it was a tough road trip. Those are 2 of the tough places to play for different reasons. And we're coming back home, and we've been very, very good this year at home, and we've got to continue that mentality. And like I said, it is really going to be a great opportunity for us to kind of forget Wednesday. And like I said, we'll forget it because I know Kansas City is not going to come in like a team that's been winless in 9. They're going to be coming a team that I think they're going to be hungry to try to see if they get back on track, not just by eking out a point, but trying to get 3 points. So we're going to have to be ready to really play well and get the 3 points.
When you're in a slump like that as a team, how do you balance constantly changing things up to try and find something that works, as opposed to just sticking with something and hoping that, or sticking with something and building off of that to try and get yourself out of that slump? What's the balance there as a coach?
Well, I think that's what you pay the coaches a lot of money for, is to really kind of decide on a balance and say, hey, I want to keep going where we are. I think we played well. The data behind it says that we should turn things around. This group is creating goals. They are limiting chances, et cetera. Versus like, I've got to get these guys to believe in themselves. I've got to get them to, switch up a system or switch up players. And I think Shelton was started at right back yesterday. So they're certainly, to me, in the mode of trying anything and different things to try to get out of their slump.
Yeah, absolutely. No one's really firing on all cylinders, hence why they're in a 9-match winless run, but they're still getting goals. Eric Tommy, 4 goals, 1 assist. Alan Plato, 3 goals, 2 assists, and Minnesota were on the receiving end of one of his goals earlier this season. So they know exactly how dangerous he can be. You said Kyrie Shelton's playing in unfamiliar positions, getting minutes.
Well, he did last night. I mean,
yeah.
by the way, he created a goal at the end of the game to go 2-1 and make it tight at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Up top. So I think it's an unknown, and I think we've got to be ready for probably another unique lineup by them, whether it's fresh legs because they played on Wednesday or because they lost, and he still wants to tweak to see if he can get a group to get a result.
Yeah, but you also mentioned that they do tend to recover. They had I think they started off the season, if I'm remembering correctly, last year, 10 matches unbeaten, or not unbeaten, 10 matches without a win. And then they just got on a roll. They got 1 win and then just kept rolling throughout the season and eventually qualified for the playoffs on the final day, unfortunately. But this is a team that they do have the veteran presence and know how to kind of get themselves out of these slumps. So no matter how much they are struggling results wise, Sporting Kansas City, you can't ever look past them because they do know how to kind of sneak a win out of nowhere and then start building off of it. So Loons don't want to be the Kickstarter for Sporting Kansas City season because we've seen how that can play out, unfortunately. But it's going to be another tough one on Saturday at Allianz Field, but I'm sure one that the players and the fans will be up for.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Like I said, it's a good test for us to come back after 2 tough games on the road where there are some positives, but also we're not where we wanted to be in terms of maybe getting more points. But that's the reality. It's a very tough teams in the West right now. We're playing some really good teams, and I think this is a big game for us to really let Kansas City know that we're on the up and we're really at home tough and really whether we have 3 days rest or a week. You're not going to have an easy night coming into Allianz Field.
Absolutely. And you can watch that game this weekend, 7:30 p.m. Central Time for the start for that match between Minnesota United and Sporting Kansas City on MLS Season Pass. Tune into the radio broadcast with Dan Terra or myself, 7 p.m. pre-match show, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on 1500 ESPN. Also on MLS Season Pass, just hit the little circle icon with the 3 lines in and you can change your audio feed to us and it's all synced up for you so you don't have to do it yourself. Nice easy feature there. I don't have the results from our picks last week. I will get those coming in. It was a quick turnaround. So I'll blame myself for that one. Let's start picking matches for this week. I want to go with the Friday match because I love some Friday night soccer. I love that this is playing out this week. New York City FC, San Jose, 2 different teams. They don't really ever see each other because opposite conferences, opposite ends of the country, but in very different forms right now. Who are you picking? This one in New York.
In New York, I picked New York.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick New York too, just because the form. San Jose on the road.
Jonathan, it's Friday night soccer. Love it.
Absolutely love it. It's great. I want more of it.
Yeah. I want more Friday. I want Friday, Sunday night soccer along with Saturday night soccer. So
absolutely
3 straight nights.
Love it. You can't go wrong with 3 straight nights of Major League Soccer action and just quick turnarounds. Let's do Vancouver, Colorado as well. This one is going to be a difficult one, but an impactful one for the Western Conference. This one in Vancouver this weekend, 9:30 p.m. on Saturday night.
That was a big road, but I've got Vancouver, kind of getting 2 in a row. That they slipped a little bit lately, and they had a nice big win. I'm going to take Vancouver.
Yeah, 2 teams that are right next to each other in the standings. Vancouver, 22 points. Colorado, 22 points. But as you said, big road win for Vancouver yesterday in Kansas City. I think I'm going to choose Vancouver as well, though Colorado, they can sneak up on teams, but they just had a big loss last night on the road, 3-1 to Houston. So I'm going to go Vancouver here. And lastly, Atlanta, Charlotte. This one, if I'm pulling up my schedule correctly, where is it? That one in Atlanta, Sunday afternoon, excuse me.
So there you go. We got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're here. I like it.
3 days in a row.
Yeah. I'm going to go tie. I know people are going to pick Atlanta. They're going to come back now. I think Charlotte's going to make it a tough day on that turf in Atlanta for them.
Charlotte's had a number of clean sheets in a row too. So defensively, they started picking things up, if I'm remembering correctly. So
yeah, they lost 3-0 last night though. So they did. But I think they're going to. Yeah, I think it's a good rivalry they're starting to brew there. I'm going to go tie. 0-0.
We've also got CONCACAF Champions Cup final this weekend. Who are you
Oh,
picking?
so good.
This is gonna be an
There's
exciting
no,
one.
well, yeah, there's no, I'm so pro MLS. So, let's have Columbus, take this series. So I know, Pachuca, we talked about them. They have been outstanding in the tournament as well. So these two teams have really fought their way to this final, and both have shown great resiliency. But Columbus all the way for MLS.
8:15 p.m. kickoff for that one. So we'll be sure to do the score updates throughout the match on that one. But definitely having eyes peeled on that one as well because of the meaning or the impact on and what it means for MLS squads. And I think Columbus can do it. I'm hoping not just because I'm an MLS fan and want the MLS team to do it, but I think they can do it. I think they're starting to come into form here, and they'll pull this one out and get a road win and take home the Champions Cup. Before we go, obviously. Wolves in action tonight. Big game 5 in that one at Target Center. Good luck to them. Congratulations go out to PWHL Minnesota for taking home the first ever Walter Cup last night. Game 5 win in Boston. So congratulations to ladies
History
over there.
made there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. The original 6.
Yeah, awesome result there for them in that win. I believe it was a 3-0 win. It's happening right as I was getting everything prepped for the broadcast, so I didn't see the exact scoreline, but I'm fairly positive that was the scoreline. And history made there. Excellent. Well done to them. Congratulations. Manny, I'm excited for this one on Saturday. Minnesota United hosting Sporting Kansas City. Minnesota looking to come back off a 2-0 loss, get back in the winning ways, and start another unbeaten run starting Saturday night.
Yeah, John, I agree. I mean, it's been a fun week of sports, and looking forward to this weekend and really getting back home and really getting out in the field and having our guys battle.
Absolutely. Loons fans, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening and watching wherever you're taking this in. Thank you to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler, for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week right back here on the Matchday Preview.